What's the one thing that both investors and entrepreneurs want more than anything else? It's not a better pitch deck, it's not a perfect product, it's not even money in the bank. It's traction. Walk into any investor's office with the beginnings of a hockey stick curve and you'll automatically trigger a Pavlovian response, where they'll sit you down and try to understand your business model. That's the power of traction. But here's the problem. Traction is a poorly understood concept, and so in this video, I'm going to break down what traction really means, why it matters so much to investors, and how to measure it correctly for your specific business model. Most importantly, I'll show you how to avoid the vanity metrics trap that trips up so many founders. So let's get started. Hi there, if you're new to this channel, my name is Ash Maurya. I'm an entrepreneur and author and the creator of the popular one-page business modeling tool, Lean Canvas, used by millions of startup founders around the world. On this channel, I share systematic strategies and techniques for launching and growing a startup. So take a look at these two charts. Which one do you think communicates more traction? You probably instinctively pick the chart on the left because it looks like a hockey stick curve, but take a look a little closer. Both charts were plotted using exactly the same data set. The chart on the left plots the cumulative number of signups over time, which can flatline but never go down. This is your classic vanity metric. The chart on the right normalizes the data and plots signups by month, which is a more accurate progress indicator, but maybe not the story you want to tell. This type of charting trick used to work, but it doesn't anymore. A more sophisticated investor will see right through this facade. Next, I don't know if you noticed this earlier, but in the hockey stick curve I showed, I didn't even label the y-axis. Yet it still communicated growth. Whenever anything starts trending up and to the right, it creates this visceral reaction. It indicates that good things are happening, that people other than yourself, your team, and maybe your mom care about your idea. But not all metrics are created equal. If a product signups, for instance, are going up, but retention is tanking, that's not something to celebrate. So while it can be tempting to try and pass off any metric that happens to be going up and to the right at the moment as traction, that too could be a vanity metric. As a founder, you need to level up your game and get much smarter about traction. So what do you think is the right metric to plot on the y-axis of a traction chart? What about revenue, or better yet, profit? Those, however, aren't the right metrics either. And here's why. The problem with using revenue and profit as measures of traction is twofold. First, with any new product, your revenue is going to be zero or near zero for a while you are building and launching your product. And your profit is actually going to be negative. So how do you communicate progress to your stakeholder? A lot of people fall back on tracking the build velocity of their product or execution of a plan, but how do you know your plan or product is actually going to work? Executing a flawed plan or building something nobody wants on time and within budget isn't a good measure of progress either. So we need a different measure of traction. Even when you have positive revenue and profit, these metrics aren't the right traction metrics because revenue and profit are still lagging indicators. They happen as a side effect of something else, and here's the tell. When a company has a good quarter, everyone rushes to take credit for it, but when a company has a bad quarter, everyone points fingers at one another. A good traction metric isn't a trailing but a leading indicator of progress, and when it goes up, it automatically signals that so will revenue and profit. So what does such a metric look like? Here's my definition of traction. Traction is the rate at which a business model captures monetizable value from its users. Let's break this definition down a little further. The rate part is important to avoid falling into the cumulative metrics trap I outlined earlier, and this definition is worded very precisely to measure the rate of monetizable value, which is not the same thing as revenue. The job of any business model is to create and deliver value to customers and capture some of this value back as revenue, which is an after effect of value creation. This is why revenue by itself is not all that actionable. To grow your business model, you need to uncover what customer actions drive this revenue, and that's how you uncover the right actionable traction metric to measure here. Now, this may be a little fuzzy at the moment, so let me illustrate this concept with a case study. Howard Schultz took a vision of bringing the Italian coffeehouse tradition to the United States and turned a single coffee shop in Seattle into a fast-growing company. Like any coffee shop, Starbucks was in the business of selling coffee. Now, you could measure traction in terms of the number of coffee cups sold, but like revenue, this is an after effect and not actionable by itself. In other words, it doesn't tell you how to make people buy more coffee. Their billion-dollar insight came by studying what key activities cause people to come to Starbucks and buy their coffee. That's when they started noticing something interesting. Many people would come to Starbucks, order a coffee, and instead of leaving, they pulled out their laptops and started working. Soon they were joined by others for meetings, and this pattern repeated throughout the day with multiple groups. This was happening at a time when Starbucks wasn't even a comfortable place to work in. There was no artwork on the walls, the chairs weren't all that comfortable, you had to pay for Wi-Fi, and the bathrooms required a key. While this behavior might have annoyed some store managers, the company quickly realized something critical by analyzing their sales data. The lifetime value of these lingering customers was significantly higher than their typical customer who simply bought coffee and left. In other words, the time spent in store correlated directly with money spent. To test if this correlation was causal, Starbucks studied a few more test stores more closely. Rather than turning these customers away, they invited them in, essentially launching the first co-working space before that was even a term. This spawned a massive rebranding campaign on the company's part, and over time, they upgraded their stores to provide more comfortable sofas, put artwork on walls, offered free Wi-Fi, and yes, they even unlocked the bathrooms. Yes, this was a massive investment on their part, but the potential ROI was already validated with their test stores, and so they went all in. This key insight transformed them from a fast-growing coffee shop into a multi-billion-dollar company that didn't just sell coffee, but created a third space between home and office, a place where people can relax, connect, and feel a sense of belonging. So hopefully this case study helped illustrate the difference between traction and revenue. You might be wondering how to map this to other types of business models, so let me quickly cover the three main types of business model archetypes that there are: direct, multi-sided, and marketplaces. Now, Starbucks is an example of a direct business model with one actor, the user who becomes a customer. In this type of model, your traction metric is determined by the rate at which you create monetizable value from this customer. And your leading indicator here is tied to the key activity that drives this. For Starbucks, that key activity was time spent in store. Facebook, TikTok, YouTube are all multi-sided models with users who use the platform and customers, in their case, advertisers who pay for the platform. Here too, you don't need dozens of data points to communicate traction. As there are two sides to this market, you need just two key metrics: daily active users to measure the monetizable value from the user side, and the value of user engagement to advertisers, which they measure and report as ARPU, or the average revenue per user. In fact, these two metrics are the only metrics Facebook highlights in their quarterly earnings calls. Now, marketplaces are a special case of multi-sided models where you also have two actors, but instead of users and customers, you have buyers and sellers. Airbnb is a classic marketplace model. Here, simply reporting the number of listings or the number of buyers in the marketplace is not enough, because a marketplace with lots of inventory but no transactions is not healthy. It would be like going into a grocery store and having lots of inventory that no one is buying. The value capture step here occurs when you bring buyers and sellers together to conduct a transaction. And transactions here are the right traction metric to measure. This is also why Airbnb uses a single traction metric, guest nights booked, to communicate their business model growth. Note that this isn't revenue, but if this number is going up and to the right, so will revenue. So yes, different business models will have slightly different traction metrics, but the key in all of them is finding the key user and customer activities that drive monetizable value. So if you're currently passing off any metric that happens to be going up as traction, stop and try to identify your single traction metric that drives your business model. That's the first step. The next step is learning how to optimize and grow traction. To learn how to do that, you should check out this video over here, where I deconstruct traction into 5 component metrics and show you how to optimize them. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.